All right. What's up, you guys? John the Morgile here, checking in for a new Flat Earth video for you. I hope you do enjoy it. So in this one, we're going to do a video response to this video here by the channel called Johnny Harris, with over 4 million subscribers to his channel and a whopping 11 million views on this video entitled Why People Think the World is Flat. And I will quickly just mention that it is pretty amazing that this Flat Earth video, where he's taking the position that Flat Earth is stupid and anyone who believes the Earth is flat is fucking nuts or whatever. And so the YouTube algorithm is obviously going to promote his video excessively, whereas someone like me taking the position that the Earth is clearly and obviously and measurably flat and stationary, we get just the opposite, right? So the YouTube algorithm is going to basically shadow ban our content and make sure that even people who are verbatim searching for this content aren't going to find my content. They're going to find the absolute nonsense that is this sort of video here. Now, again, this guy is a very successful and popular YouTuber, obviously, with over 4 million subscribers, but I will just say quickly that his videos, plain and simple, just don't get 11 million views on them. He's got one other video, which is calling out McDonald's, which is, definitely going out on a limb there, right? Calling out McDonald's for being unhealthy or whatever. Oh, the reason why their ice cream machines are always broken, which I actually did see that one too a while ago. It was a rather interesting video, but I guess the point that I'm making here is this is just proof in the pudding where the YouTube algorithm, admitted by YouTube, is going to fluff up and promote content that takes the opposing position to Flat Earth, which proofs in the pudding right here. 11 million views on this, where the majority of his videos get 4 or 5 million views, certainly not 10 or 11 million views, which is a fluke, right? His video is from 3 years ago, and just out of curiosity, his channel has been up for just 4 years. So it is interesting that his channel blows up with anti-flat Earth content right in the beginning of his channel. So that's neither here nor there. I mean, you can't blame somebody for the YouTube algorithms unfairly skewing flat Earth information, but he certainly did ride that wave in. So let's just get right on into it. We're going to go ahead and call fair use on this. Oh, and yeah, FBI warning. So hopefully if I get inundated with bogus copyright claims, maybe the FBI will swoop in and save me from bogus copyright claims. No. The reason that I put those disclaimers at the beginning of the videos is to hopefully avoid bogus copyright claims, but doesn't always work. We'll see how it goes. All right, here we go. Why people think the Earth is flat, and I will respond accordingly as we go.
If you were able to look through the perspective of a person who thinks the world is flat, you would see this. The North Pole is right here in the center, the continents splayed out over this plain, and here on the edges, you'd run into a 150-foot wall of ice, guarded by NASA employees with guns.
I think that's a red herring mischaracterization of the whole thing. Granted, there are a lot of flat earthers who claim that the Antarctic is a contiguous ice wall around the periphery. I won't go so far as to claim that. I mean, perhaps that's what's going on, but frankly, I've never been to Antarctica, and I've certainly never circumnavigated the South Polar area, so I'm not going to claim that. And in fact, many of the mariners who were making those sorts of far southern voyages throughout history and documenting their voyages on their own reckoning, on their own navigation, on their own accord, definitely found problems with the doctrine of rotundity where, the far southern latitudes should be little tiny rings around the globe and not very vast rings as they definitely appear to be. But the claim that NASA employees are guarding the periphery with guns is just absurd. I mean, come on, what a red herring.
And how far that ice goes outwards. And when people try to go down there, they get turned away at gunpoint and put in prison.
Yeah, there goes Eric DeBay. And I guess you can give examples like, what was the guy's name? Jarl Anderhoy, I want to say, which he really was stopped at the 60-degree south area and turned away at gunpoint. And I think he was given some kind of criminal charges. I may be misspeaking. But the thing is there definitely is the Antarctic Treaty in place, which criminalizes anyone bringing or storing fuel beyond the 60-degree south latitude. It's very difficult to get to the Antarctic, especially when there are laws preventing you from going there. But I don't think they necessarily have NASA employees patrolling the Antarctic with guns. I think what's more likely is if an errant ship gets too far south, maybe they do send people out there to check it out. But frankly, I believe it's impossible for any group or any army of people to patrol the entirety of the far south. It's just too vast. And for anyone to characterize the far south as necessarily an ice wall, I think is premature. We just don't have enough data. Sure, it does appear that from far southern areas like Argentina, or from like the southern tip of Australia, or the southern tip of South Africa, when you go south from there, you definitely appear to wind up in the Antarctic area, which is icy, but I just don't think we have enough data to suggest that the entirety of it is an ice wall. I think that is, it's not supported by any data that I've seen. And in fact, the azimuthal equidistant projection basically takes a globe Earth layout and splays it around an AE layout, which it's got the same inherent problems as the globe, just mapped out in a sort of flat Earth map. But whatever, we're getting ahead of ourselves, I'm sure.
The heavens are a dome that arcs over the flat Earth.
That's not what I would say. I would say that the heavens are in a planar sort of alignment. So I don't believe in the flat Earth dome, even though it does say firmament in the English translation of the Bible. In the original intent of the Bible, it was rakia, which simply means expanse of the heavens. Nothing firm or domal about it. But anyway.
The sun, the moon, the stars, they're all just little balls of light in the sky that move around just above the Earth's surface.
Okay, sure.
There are loads of people who actually believe this. YouTube channels and Facebook pages, you'll see hundreds of thousands of followers. Google searches for the term flat Earth proof over time look like this. It's become incredibly popular. And recently...
Okay, so you notice how the chart goes up and up and up and up right to this point, I guess around April of 2018, and then a sharp decline, which is, I would suggest, because of Google and YouTube taking an active disinformation stance against flat Earth content, which they don't even try to hide. I mean, they were bragging about it in a press conference where they were like, yeah, we're going to shadow ban flat Earth content, basically. That was coming from like their chief information officer or one of their executive officers there at Google, YouTube, or whatever. So, but isn't that interesting how it just sort of fizzles out right there at the peak in right around April of 2018? Which was, by the way, right around the same time as the Great Purge, if I'm not mistaken. And right at the first of that year, or right within that same year, if you were making flat Earth content and earning any sort of money via ad revenue on YouTube, right around that same time, it crashed as well. So, I mean, YouTube and these big tech companies are definitely actively trying to squash flat Earth in the public perception.
incredibly popular. And recently, a poll showed that only 84% of Americans agree with the statement, "I have always believed the world is round." 84%. And if you're 18 to 24, that's more like 66%, which is like dangerously close to half. What is
going on? Because it's the truth, man. Because the earth happens to be flat and stationary. As sad as that, as crazy and as sad as that sounds, it happens to be true, man.
going on here?
Now the North Pole is the center of a deep ocean, whereas the South Pole is the center of a high plateau, which averages 7,000 or 8,000 feet in altitude.
This is frustrating, and what's even more frustrating is every time I try to look into this and understand it, all I see is coverage of like flat earther conventions and like interviews with these people.
We absolutely know for a fact this ain't it.
These interviews are interesting, but I want to understand like how someone with a thinking brain can actually get behind this. What is this?
Okay, so a little bit to unpack there. So he says when he's looking for flat earth information, all he can find is interviews with these people and flat earth conventions and such. And how can anyone with a thinking brain get behind this, right? That's what he just said. Well, I would suggest that you get your information from nature by, using your God-given senses, by using your God-given discernment, and maybe an experiment here and there. And yeah, I agree. I don't think you're going to glean much scientific data from interviewing people or from flat earth conventions, but it's up to you. It's up to the individual to take the time to skeptically revisit your steadfast belief in spinning ball earth, which is frankly quite absurd. The whole concept of spinning ball earth is totally wrecked by real obvious self-evident data that is ubiquitous. It's everywhere. But the reason why thinking people with brains can get behind this is because it's true. It's actually the truth, as crazy as that sounds.
Actual belief. Where does it come from, and how do potentially millions of people believe that the earth is flat?
The water is...
And again, it's not about belief. Belief is a silly word, in my opinion. So like, for example, there are certain things in reality that are not prone to beliefs, right? So like pool balls, billiards balls are spherical. Billiards tables are planar surfaces. There's no belief involved. Billiards balls are measurably spherical. Billiards tables are measurably flat planar surfaces. You don't need to have any theories to get behind either one of these things. It's just objective, demonstrable, self-evident reality. And so belief has nothing to do with flat Earth. Sure, belief has a lot to do with spinning ball Earth, because much like the concept of Santa Claus, you have to believe in shit that's just asinine. But when it comes to the measurably stationary Earth that's not spinning around, not flying around in 5 directions at once along multiple curvilinear paths, measurably not curved, not convex as a sphere necessarily would be, belief has nothing to do with this, buddy. It's demonstrable fact. It's measurable fact. Earth is flat and stationary, quite simply.
completely flat for as far as we can see and as far as we've measured, and the horizon is completely flat.
I'm in Mexico now. I've been sitting on the beach reading everything there is to read about the history of people who believe the earth is flat.
Okay, have you done any experiments? Did you read zetetic astronomy? Because I know that he does take some jabs at zetetic astronomy, the book, here in this video, but he purposefully misrepresents concepts in there and clearly didn't read the book. But he's reading things about people. Maybe you should study the earth. Maybe you should practice geometry, which literally etymologically means measure the earth. Maybe you should practice some physics, which means study bodies in motion. because if you apply just an inkling of physics and geometry to reality, to nature, you will surely find, without studying any people, you'll surely find that the Earth is demonstrably, self-evidently flat and stationary.
And there's one thing that I just had to try for myself.
This is a simple experiment that anybody can conduct to determine definitely that the Earth is flat. Grab a spirit level and take it on the plane with you.
117. Found this hardware store, bought myself a level. Gracias, amigo.
One of the strangest things I've ever done.
And I'm bringing it with me on the airplane.
In my opinion, that's a silly proof because, okay, according to the ball Earth, you know, the level wouldn't read anything different along that plane ride. It's a bad proof, in my opinion, and so this is a red herring. There are lots of proofs to be had in terms of aeronautics and things like that, but this ain't one of them. So what a red herring, in my opinion.
I'm gonna do some of this empirical science myself.
If you are to fly on a non-rotating Earth, please explain what kind of experience will a pilot really have?
The logic goes that if the Earth is round and I'm flying thousands of miles, which I'm about to do, then the airplane will have to be tipped a little bit the whole time in order to make it around the curvature of the Earth.
And while that part is technically true, if the Earth was a sphere with the rules of gravity as they believe, the level wouldn't show anything. Like, it's a moot point, and in my opinion, it's a stupid proof. And I'm not trying to start arguments with flat earthers who champion this proof, but in my opinion, it's a nothing burger, and it's a waste of time, and it's a perfect sort of red herring for globetards to latch onto and point to as nothing burgers, because in my opinion, that's what that whole spirit level on a plane thing is, truthfully.
Earth.
The plane should be constantly dipping its nose forward in order to compensate for the curvature.
Show me some planes doing this.
I would be able to see the tilt of the airplane if I put my newly purchased level on the tray table in front of me.
I'm going to take my spirit level onto the plane.
If my tool shows me that the plane is totally level,
That's proof that the Earth is flat.
let's go see what happens.
I would say you'd be better off taking a mechanical gyro onto a plane and somehow making sure that thing remains spun up the whole time. Or you could just use the artificial horizon, which is exactly that. A gyroscope that maintains its rigidity in space the entire time and never indicates the necessary drifts or the necessary precession that would be apparent and obvious if the Earth was actually a sphere. A spirit level, not so much. The so-called laws of gravity would factor that out. It would negate any sort of reading you might hope to receive from a spirit level. But I would say, replace that with a gyroscope or even the artificial horizon on a plane, and you're in business, sure. There's no curvature, that's for damn sure.
Can somebody explain to me duty-free? Why perfume? Why is there so much perfume in duty-free? 4 hours on an airplane, and I'm back. My little level experiment worked wonderfully. The bubble stayed nice and center. Turns out the plane was not dipping its nose in order to make it around the Earth. This is explained by the basics of gravity and physics. This video is not a debunk.
And so what he said right there is actually right. It is explained by the basics of gravity and physics. Gravity being a hypothesis which is only necessary or applicable if you first assume that the world is a sphere in the first place. So while I disagree that the Earth is a sphere, he's right. Like, if you're humoring the ball Earth hypothesis with this sort of spirit level experiment or whatever, it's a moot point. It really is a nothing burger, which is why I really wish flat earthers would get off of that and get off of the whole plane flying upside down thing, because by the time you get upside down over here on the ball, right, it's still right side up. No matter where you are above the ball, you're always on the top. You're always level, right? So, I mean, agreed, the earth isn't a ball. It's definitely flat, but this proof is a nothing burger. So, just my 2 cents on it. No offense to people who like to use that proof, but I fucking wish you would stop, really, because it's a moot point.
Of flat earth theory that doesn't need to happen, that shouldn't need to happen. What this is my fascination with the fact that there is lots of people, let's put it this way, a non-zero number of humans who think the world is flat, and they were.
So basically what he just said is he's not going to debunk flat earth theory. Another thing he's not going to do is skeptically revisit his long-standing, unassailable belief in a spinning ball earth, which is key to this process. You have to really hold the ball earth's feet to the fire. It is much easier for a modern person to hold flat earth's feet to the fire because, well, everybody knows the earth's a spinning ball, so flat earthers are necessarily stupid and retarded, and it's just an easy win. And if you're anti-flat earth, it's an easy way to make a bunch of money on YouTube. The problem is you're going about this the wrong way. You should really be applying some of your very healthy and rational, long overdue skeptical criticism towards your unassailable belief in a spinning ball earth, not towards the concept of flat earth, which you obviously do not understand.
Work really hard to prove it. I want to understand what sorts of tools are being used to prove the world is flat. So here we go. I wonder if I can get some really dramatic, like, conspiracy theory lighting going on here. I'm seeing all the evidence. What if the Earth actually is flat? The plane wasn't dipping. The level was flat. Okay, I'm kidding. Let's get into this. I've been in the weeds learning about the flat Earth experience.
Isn't that so funny? Yeah, just take jabs at flat earthers by pretending that the evidence, which is everywhere, doesn't amount to shit, right? I'm sorry, but this dude's clearly a shill. Clearly,
people believe
he's shilling.
And why and where it all came from. And here's what I've learned. Number one, flat earthers have become a thing just in the...
Okay, so number one, he says flat earth is a new thing, which is clearly not true. All of the ancient cosmologies were geocentric cosmologies. The ancient Chinese, ancient Maya, ancient Greeks, these are all geocentric flat earthers. There was no misconception about the earth being a spinning ball. According to the official history narrative, sure, allegedly the ancient Greeks in like 200 BC or whatever were kicking the idea around a bit, but let's not forget that the first globes weren't invented until after the 1500s, right? 500 years ago or whatever, right? So the concept that this is just a new thing is ridiculous. The globe Earth is the new thing, I promise you. What a misconception.
Past couple hundred years. So by like 205 BC, you've got these really smart Greek people making experiments that are like observing a globe-shaped Earth. Over the next several centuries, eventually this would just become the widespread thing among anyone who was doing experimentation on the world. And eventually, nobody believed the Earth was flat. Even in like the medieval times, like it was a consensus that the Earth was a globe. So in short, flat Earth...
Okay, first of all, whether or not that's true, I'm not gonna argue, but consensus does not mean anything. Physical reality is not swayed by human consensus. Popular belief and conventional wisdom have historically been a pitfall or a roadblock to progress. So, really, consensus be damned, in my opinion.
Earthers weren't a thing during this time. Even though literally in elementary school, I was taught that Christopher Columbus and like his voyage was somehow to prove that the Earth was round or maybe it was flat and that there was like some debate around that. That's actually a total legend, and I have no idea why I was taught that in elementary school. How did that?
You know, it's funny because I remember that as well. I remember the ships going over the horizon mast last as being something that Columbus championed, and at least I remember learning that in elementary school, which indeed now, according to the official historical narrative, is incorrect. But what I will say real quick is the discrepancy between Eratosthenes' value and Christopher Columbus's value of the hypothetically ball Earth. Remember, if Christopher Columbus knew the Earth was a ball and they knew its dimensions for thousands of years, then why the fuck did he think he landed in India when he was actually 4,000 miles away in the Bahamas on the east coast of the United States, when he thought he was in like Japan or something? Until the day he died, Christopher Columbus died thinking he was in India. That's why still to this day we call Native Americans Indians, some people do. So, you know, this whole idea that he's got that Christopher Columbus knew the Earth was a ball and knew its dimensions, then why the discrepancy between Eratosthenes' value and Christopher Columbus's value, which was like 6,000 miles discrepancy? There's something there. Just think about it. I'm not going to answer that. You know, just you, the viewer, chew on that for yourself.
I actually am genuinely curious. Like, how did that happen? The fact is, Christopher Columbus, the Catholic Church, the Spanish patrons, no one thought the Earth was flat. But then they became a thing. Any sort of flat earther movement didn't actually come around, ironically, until science was really starting to heat up. During the mid-1800s, a huge amount of scientific breakthrough was happening. The scientific method was taking off, and huge breakthroughs in biology, physics, anatomy, and mathematics were taking place. But at the time, there were also people who were becoming uncomfortable with how advanced scientific methods were getting. These guys were like, hold on a second, you have all these fancy new tools to inquire into the world and to understand reality, but these tools are getting like too sophisticated and too abstract and theoretical. They're becoming too disconnected from like what I can see and understand and touch and feel. They wanted to bring science back to what it had been for a really long time, which is that like a person goes out, uses simple tools like a telescope to look at the world and to make conclusions about how the world works. So it's the 1800s, science is like having its time, and you have these guys, usually from like the US and the UK, who want to throw out this growing body of like amazing advancements in science, and they start to do experiments. Here's what those experiments look like. So it's the summer of 1838. England, up in the county of Cambridgeshire, which literally sounds like a place in The Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, because it's got the word Shire in it.
So it's the summer of 1838, and the atom had just been discovered, and the Doppler effect is like...
The atom had just been theorized, not discovered. The atomic thing is a theory. Nobody's ever seen an atom or imaged an atom. It is a theory.
Being fleshed out. And then you've got this guy. His name is Samuel Rowbotham, but he goes by the pseudonym Parallax, which is actually a pretty dope name. Like, if I were a DJ, I would totally go with, like, Parallax. Anyway, Parallax decides, even though all this science is happening, he thinks it's time to reopen up the debate about whether or not the Earth is a globe, which was like...
No, he didn't want to reopen a debate. What he did was he measured the Earth to be flat and stationary, and wrote a book about it that I know that you do mention in this video, but you misrepresent the one thing about it that you mentioned. So that is pretty slimy. We'll get to that here in just a second.
Literally settled thousands of years earlier. But
no,
he's like,
wasn't.
no.
Let's do it.
And he finds this canal system that is incredibly straight. This canal goes on for almost 10 kilometers, like 6 miles of just a straight line. This guy says, if the Earth is a globe, and people say it's 25,000 miles in circumference, then if I look at a straight line After the first mile, the curvature of the Earth would mean that the canal would now be 8 inches lower. After 2 miles, it would be 32 inches lower. After 3 miles, 72 inches lower, meaning like 6 feet, almost 2 meters, and so on. So he thinks eventually the dip from the curvature of the Earth would be so great that you could easily observe it. So he gets in the water, he puts a telescope right above the surface of the water, and then puts a boat on the canal with a 1 meter tall post on it. So what he wants to see is if the Earth is curved, if it's a globe, this post will start to disappear over the horizon. So he does it. The boat goes away, it goes the entire 6 miles of the canal, and it stays in sight the entire time. It doesn't dip over the horizon. And he's stoked. He's like, man, I just proved that the Earth is flat. And I did it with a telescope and a boat. Like, screw you, science. Like, I'm making breakthroughs right here in Cambridgeshire. And then he writes this book.
So what I'll just quickly mention is, yeah, the raw data there doesn't look good for a globe, right? If the convexity was there that they claim, then yeah, the flag on that boat should have been well below the geometric horizon line. But it wasn't. It was visible the whole time. Now, the thing is this isn't the only proof in zetetic astronomy. There's lots of them. And it's not just over 6 miles, it's over 50 miles, or even, in modern times, we've got images of mountain ranges that are over 270 miles and still no curvature. You can't argue refraction in every single instance, brother. You just can't do that. The spherical Earth is not going to smartly and deviously present itself as a plane in order to trick us into thinking the Earth is a plane all the time, right? Sure, you could argue refraction some of the time, but it's a variable. There's nothing standard about it. That would be like saying standard rainbows or something like that. It's just absurd how people will exercise cognitive dissonance in order to maintain their steadfast, unassailable belief in the spinning ball Earth.
Where he fleshes out this experiment and several others that he does. But wait, this experiment's like kind of legit, right? Like it adds up. Like his numbers were all correct about the circumference and the dip of the curvature. Like why didn't it dip? Like why was the boat still in sight? There's nothing wrong with this experiment. Parallax got that great name. Maybe he was onto something.
I must quickly point out that an experiment must entail science, right? And in order to have an experiment, you need to be trying to establish a cause and effect relationship for naturally occurring phenomenon. So ball Earth, flat Earth, there is no science or experiment that's going to prove one or the other. Because in order to do science, you first must have some naturally occurring phenomenon. And you can't have a phenomenon of ball Earth or a phenomenon of flat Earth. So you're not going to be able to establish the cause and effects relationship involved with flat Earth or sphere Earth. So I do need to get that in there real quick or whatever. But yeah, good luck trying to find science for ball Earth or flat Earth, because science deals specifically with things of physics, right?
No, this is stupid. This is like a 3rd grade science experiment in your backyard. This experiment doesn't take into account how the natural world actually works and how light behaves and refracts based on the different air densities. This is like stuff that people already figured out, and like Parallax is sitting there getting wet in a canal, like trying to observe this on his... No, this is not...
So you just saying no doesn't do anything. If you actually read the book, you'd notice that he does mention refraction in there as to why he didn't include any sort of allowances for refraction.
Prove anything. But Parallax didn't want to hear any of this. He didn't want to talk about atmospheric refraction and air density.
But he does talk about it in the book, so that's a lie. Dude's just lying at this point. Or he didn't read the book. I'm sure he didn't, right? So either he's lying or he's ignorant, but there's no other options.
And how light behaves in different media. Too complicated, too abstract. You can't touch and feel that stuff. Instead, Parallax sees science and observing reality as a much simpler task. In his book, he says, "Nature speaks to us in a peculiar language, in the language of phenomena. She answers at all times the questions which are put to her." Just like go out and like put a question to Mother Nature and she'll answer it. As scientific...
If you'd actually read the very next sentence after the thing that you highlighted, he says those questions are asked in the form of experiments. So he's not just saying go ask questions to the ether as you're mischaracterizing, like what is slime ball? No, he's talking about experiments. And the zetetic process, what he was getting at with that is science is, even at that point in time, was being mischaracterized, and the actual valor of science was being stolen by theorists, people who just make shit up and call it science because they can construct mathematics to back up their hypotheticals. But I've talked about this till I'm blue in the face. You can construct mathematics around hypotheticals which have absolutely no basis in reality. So while the math checks out, it doesn't mean shit, right?
Methods become more sophisticated, they become harder for you and me to understand. Parallax and his canal experiments are a reaction to all of this. They are a call for...
No, the dude was sick of all the pseudoscience that goes around, that comes right along with ball Earth theory. And if you actually read zetetic astronomy, you'd find that all of the so-called proofs that were even being paraded around during his day, like Foucault's pendulum, like the Cavendish experiment, in air quotes, ships going over the horizon mast last, and all of these sort of alleged globe Earth proofs were shown to be flimsy and circumstantial at best. Furthermore, all of the exclusive things that are supposedly only possible on a globe turned out it can work either way. So, wow, what a slime ball, really.
For a simplification of scientific methods and a return of the senses as the primary force for understanding reality. He called his method of reductionist pseudoscience the zetetic method. He says that
what zetetic means is to proceed only according to inquiry. So you don't just make up theories and use assumptions to construct mathematics and then call that an axiom, an unassailable axiom, which is what they definitely did with, the whole Copernican revolution. Zetetic, or Robotham writing zetetic, was not a response to science getting too complicated. It was a response to science becoming something that wasn't science. It was pseudoscience masquerading as science, and frankly, he called them out on all of that bullshit and did a wonderful job, even for his time in the 1800s. It's a great book, and I've actually got it as an audiobook on my channel. I'll put a card up here for you.
Honesty of thought is to look at truth in the face, not the side face, but the full front.
Full Monty.
Just look at it, go out and observe it for yourself. He was among several scientists and mathematicians at the time who were on this train of let's use really simplified reductionist math and science to prove that the Earth is actually flat.
No, you're mischaracterizing. What he was saying is we cannot replace theory and mathematics for direct measurement and observation. And it's when you start conflating theory and mathematics with direct observation and measurement, that's not science. That is necessarily pseudoscience. Anything that's not demonstrable, not falsifiable, not observable, not repeatable, that's all pseudoscience. So when you've got theory and mathematics constructed around hypotheticals, at some point you need to go back and check those hypotheticals, check those assumptions to see whether or not they actually conform to reality. And frankly, all of the stuff that goes along with the ball Earth theory is pseudoscience. There's nothing scientific about it, especially when you get into the likes of NASA, who have been faking space since their very inception, actually.
Argument of the flat Earth flickered for a little bit in the 1800s, gained a little bit of traction, but then eventually it died out until just a few years ago.
I refuse to be another.
Yeah, and it died out because of smear campaigns and dedicated hit campaigns against the movement. And it was really only one guy that was championing this. There were others, but you know, they started the Flat Earth Society or whatever that was later co-opted, and it didn't just fizzle out and die of natural causes. It was murdered because the powers that be need the deception of Ball Earth in order to implement the demonic beast system that we have to this very day, where people worship money, people worship themselves, and people worship science as if it's God, right?
The vegetable. Pseudoscience garbage will to me be unacceptable. Anyone with eyes to see don't have to be susceptible. Dispose of your globe in the nearest waste receptacle.
There is no curvature to this earth. There is no motion to this earth. If you just accept the globe model with no understanding of the flat and no clear evidence for the ball earth, do you see the problem there?
Flat earthers are back, and their methods are very similar to what Parallax was doing in the 1800s.
And this is data.
Well, the methods may be similar, but we have a great deal more technology than Parallax had available at the time, and even still, dude, it's flat. It just is. It's the truth. It's not spinning around. And, you know, so far we're over halfway through this video, and up to this point, dude hasn't given one single globe Earth proof, not one single proof that we're spinning at 1,000 miles an hour, faster than the speed of sound. No proof that we're orbiting the sun at 66,600 miles an hour. No proof for any geological curvature. No proof for geological motion. Just resting on his loins that flat earthers are stupid and science is God. Wow, what a slime ball.
It's repeatable, observable, measurable.
If you take the time to learn, you will change your mind. There's no doubt. The only reason people think they live on a spinning ball is willful ignorance.
They're still zooming into horizons, but now they have hordes of visual stuff to play around with. They now have airplanes. They now have satellite imagery to play around with. They now have the
satellite imagery to play around with? Okay, first of all, satellites are unnecessary and irrelevant. I did a video recently. I'll try to put a card right here for a recent video debunking the concept of satellites because it's just hogwash, man. Any satellite images that we've got are from high altitude weather balloons. Things like GPS use ground-based tower triangulation, not satellites. Things like Doppler radar to predict weather patterns use ground-based, tower-based radio frequencies, not satellites. The only things that potentially are using satellites, like the little generic plastic dish affixed to the side of your house, or like, say, a satellite phone, they've got a high-altitude communications balloons up there in vast arrays, acting as signal repeaters, behaving just like satellites would. But it doesn't cost quadrillions of dollars to launch up weather balloons, basically communications balloons. So what that means is NASA's been pocketing billions of dollars annually and lying to everyone. So, you know, you can go with NASA all you want, dude, but they're full of shit, obviously.
Moon landing to dissect, and now they're taking levels onto airplanes,
yeah,
like I did.
That's pretty stupid. It is kind of stupid to do levels on airplanes.
Your plane can't go upside down. Here's the thing, globe hugger.
Like the flat earthers in the 1800s, the flat earthers today want to use their own intuition and senses to understand reality. And in the process, they reject and ignore the huge body of science that we all live with today.
So people that have...
So, okay, if there is this huge body of science, whatever the hell that means, that proves, you know, curvature and axial rotation and orbital motion and all that, where is it? Why doesn't your video contain any proof for spinning ball Earth theory? Why is it all picking on flat earthers and really some of the weakest arguments and red herring mischaracterizations of arguments, just like all the other globetard videos do, that are definitely bolstered by YouTube's algorithms, while the actual flat earth content creators are buried by the same algorithms. Why is it that flat earth is so disruptive to big corporations like Google and YouTube? Could it be because the truth, the antidote for this great deception that we've been living through our whole lives and for many generations prior to our births, could it be that that deception is central to their profitability? Could it be that people who are deceived are basically like cattle to be led around by the nose wherever the fuck Google wants them to be led? But flat earthers, people who exercise rational discernment and who use their damn brains, aren't that easily misled and used as cash cows, right? Could it be?
Physics degrees, astronomy degrees. They got their degree by regurgitating what their teacher or the books told them.
Instead of trigonometry and telescopes and canals, the flat earthers today use videos and photos circulated on the internet.
The azimuthal equidistant.
Okay, so why don't you use videos and photos circulated on the internet to prove a globe? Because you can't prove something that isn't true, right? Of course.
Projection map that the USGS actually uses is the flat Earth map.
Wait, did he just say azimuthal equidistant projection? That's like my favorite projection. Is that the flat Earth map? Don't with me in projections. I take them very seriously. In true internet fashion, this new current movement of flat earthers has become just a bunch of bumper sticker type assertions and images that are really easy to share. Just like parallaxes experiments, these methodologies completely ignore the way the natural world is observed to work by, like...
That's not true. The thing is, see, flat earthers were deceived by the same mind control program that you and everybody else was deceived by growing up. But we've snapped out of it. We've woken up. All physical evidence, all measurable data proves a flat and stationary Earth. It is really quite obvious and self-evident. The problem is people are damn brainwashed by it since we were little kids. It's very insidious and it's sad, but thank God that deception is finally at an end. You can't put the cat back in the bag on this one. They're going to have to fucking destroy the whole world if they want this to go away. And they might do it, man. They might just do a whole reset in order to, you know, start over from scratch. And you and me, if you're watching this video, or if you're even one of the 11 million that watched this guy's original video, you ain't in the club, man. I'm sorry to say. You know, if they do another reset, we're all getting fucking buried. So you got to pick a side, man. I hope you're on the side of who is right. I hope you're on the side of the truth.
Thousands of years of scientific consensus. But if you go...
Oh, really? So now consensus proves truth, huh? Where is your globe Earth evidence? Where's your evidence that your ass is spinning around 1,000 miles an hour to the east right now? Where's your evidence for curvature? Oh, you're just going to point and laugh at flat earthers and call them stupid and ignorant. And that's really all you need to do to be a successful anti-flat earther this day and age. They've made it very easy. Maybe I'll change the script. Maybe I'll do that just so that I can be monetarily successful, and then half of y'all will accept me, right?
Go to the FAQ page of the Flat Earth Society. You'll see what they're after here. They believe that...
And the Flat Earth Society is definitely a misinformation campaign. Anybody who points to them as any sort of reference for actual Flat Earth information is clearly either deceived or being deceitful. But anybody who knows the first fucking thing about Flat Earth knows you don't go to the Flat Earth Society for information. So why is he pointing to them again? I mean, come on. And this video is 3 years old, so that means he did it in like, what, 2020 or whatever? I mean, come on, man. At that point, I had already been doing Flat Earth videos for 5 years and pointed out for years that the Flat Earth Society was a co-opt operation, psychological operation used to funnel would-be Flat Earthers, you know, people who are looking into the topic, into misinformation that's, you know, created to make the whole concept seem stupid. So... good one, man. Way to prove my point by pointing to the Flat Earth Society, you fucking galoop.
Evidence is, quote, relying on your own senses to discern the true nature of the world around us.
Ain't nothing
That's
wrong
the
with
best
that.
evidence. And in that vein, that's what these people are doing.
I mean, so in the physics world today, do they not understand that convex lenses or fisheye lenses or GoPro add a distorted view?
So, what have I learned from all of this? From my understanding, the flat earther movement, whether from the 1800s or today on the internet, is actually not totally about the shape of the earth. This movement has a much broader message.
It's totally about the shape of the earth and the fact that it is demonstrably and self-evidently at rest. Never moved a single yard.
Built into it. There's a reason why 1984 is like in the canon of the flat earther movement. 1984 has nothing to do with the shape of the earth. What it does have to do with is being skeptical of big institutions that are probably...
I would say that 1984 has a lot to do with flat earth because it paints the picture of what was going on in the Cold War, between Russia and the United States, where you've got the people of the United States being misled about the Russian people who are demonized in the United States canon, and vice versa. So you've got this whole evil, unforgivable enemy overseas thing where we could be bombed out of our minds or bombed out of our world at any moment by nukes or whatever, right? And so, yeah, 1984, I think it's a book that everyone should read, Flat Earther or no, because it is a very valid and accurate commentary about the dangers of centralized power and big government.
Watching you, that are probably controlling your life, that are probably feeding you bad information to retain power.
No, we're not crazy, we're just sick of the lies.
Here's the thing. Most of the knowledge we have about the natural world and the universe, we've never seen. We've never seen exoplanets or the deep space telescopes that tell us so much about our universe.
Infinite space doesn't exist. Infinite space is reliant upon globe Earth. If the Earth was a globe, it would have curvature. If the Earth was a spinning and orbiting globe, there would be evidence, physical evidence of geological motion. There is none of that. The Earth is demonstrably at rest, therefore NASA is lying, infinite space doesn't exist, and deep fake deep space telescopes are merely space art. That's it.
Instead, we read about this stuff. We benefit from its findings. We pay our taxes to fund more of it. Science is like...
Okay. And what exactly has NASA produced from all of their countless hours and quadrillions of dollars in space? And you can't point to the patents that NASA comes up with on an annual basis because the inventors of those patents are not astronauts. They're just regular dudes on the ground on NASA's payroll. So, like, really, what has NASA contributed to the betterment of mankind? What has space exploration done except for provide a really convenient money laundering operation to the criminals at NASA? The Nazis of NASA, if you will.
Tall tower, and each individual researcher and institution adds a little brick to that tower, each brick resting on the one below it. No one person sees or understands all of the bricks. Instead, we have a system of debate, review, scrutiny that only allows the most accurate information to be added to the tower. And honestly, I don't think humans are well suited to adapt to this very impersonal way of understanding the world. We have evolved.
Yeah, but at some point you do need to go down and kick around the bricks at the bottom and make sure that your axioms are actually true, right? I mean, you can assume certain things for argument's sake and to construct mathematical descriptions of complex things, but at some point you really do need to go and check your premises, brother. Unfortunately, it's a very difficult thing to do because, well, you know, everybody knows the Earth's a spinning ball, so why would we bother measuring it for curvature? What a waste of time that would be, right?
Over millions of years with our senses as our main driver of survival. And now we...
Well, clearly your sensors are off when you combed your hair today. I'm just saying, like, I gotta think of something bad to say about this guy. What a stupid haircut. And a stupid jacket. Now I'm just picking, now I'm just doing ad hominems, but once you've insulted flat earthers for 20 minutes straight, I gotta label some insults towards you, brother.
We live in a society that is run by big systems and impersonal institutions that we will never touch and feel, much less understand. And that's why we have.
Right, but by simply measuring the world to determine whether or not the convexity or curvature exists, you can do that without touching or seeing or being a part of any of those systems that you're on about. What a waste of breath this whole thing was. And we're almost to the end here, and not a single shred of evidence was produced by this globetard to prove that the Earth has curvature or is in motion. What a surprise. What a surprise. And the reason that they don't do that is because no such evidence actually exists. And all of the stuff that they taught us throughout kindergarten and elementary school turned out to be absolutely fake. Nothing burgers.
Have people who believe the world is flat, despite conclusive evidence to the contrary. This belief is a proxy for a much larger paradigm that mistrusts anything that you can't touch and feel. And so yeah, I'm really sad that only 84% of people can say with certainty that they've always believed the world is a globe. And that
84% of people over a certain age. You did say that the younger audiences was closer to 66%, so I guess that's even sadder. But really, how can the truth, or how can someone understanding the truth be sad? I would say it's much more depressing and much sadder for people to be deceived about something as simple as the ground that they've always lived upon since they were just a little kid. It is a very insidious and sad deception indeed.
64% for younger people. Only 64% of people. Like that just blows my mind, and it's incredibly sad. But despite this belief, this movement, these conventions, this total lunacy, science will continue to do its thing. It will continue to go out, observe the world with these amazing tools that we have, come back, debate it, and add to this tower.
So clearly this dude has no idea what the actual scientific method entails. NASA and their Lie-mobiles isn't science. Theoretical astrophysics isn't science. Science is really just establishing cause and effect relationships for naturally occurring phenomenon through experiments, or posing questions to nature using experiments, right? As Robotham would have said.
Of knowledge that helps us see the world as it really is.
What a tool. I think that about covers it. So basically, this super on fire 11 million views to this video where the guy was just a new channel when he came out with this video, and it just performed phenomenally well on YouTube because he's taking the anti-flat earth position, which is admittedly bolstered by algorithms, whereas somebody like me, who's put a great deal of time and effort into exposing the truth about flat earth, I just get kicked in the balls all day long by the likes of YouTube. But I'm still trying, still out there giving it the old college try, but it's tough, man. It's tough. I'm in a position now which I wouldn't wish on my worst enemy, teetering on homelessness, staying in a weekly hotel that I can't afford, trying to do better for myself, but it's hard. I'm really struggling, you guys. So special big thanks and shout out to our channel Patreons, although they are dwindling. I love you guys very much, and thank you for your support. All of our channel supporters through Cash App, PayPal, and Venmo, thank you very much. I'll put links in the description box below if you'd like to support this channel and help me to continue to survive and make content. So love you guys very much, and I will see you in the next one. As always, spread the word, spread the world, and peace out, everybody.